It seems like I've figured out the perfect formula for viral reels. In this video, I'm going to save you a ton of time and money, and tell you what was in every one of my videos that got over 100,000 views. Honestly, there's a really clear structure made up of 6 components, and if you implement it in your videos, every one of your reels can get views like this, and this. To be honest, I'm getting this away from the heart. I feel like this is almost too valuable for YouTube. And the last time I shared something like this, some of these little tricks, you sent me a huge number of thank you messages. So now that I've realized and worked out the formula for the perfect reel, which each of you can repeat on your own account, I just have to share it, and I'm going to do that right now. All my videos that went viral had one thing in common: intrigue. Your video shouldn't just be filler, with a solution coming at some point later. Actually, not just this point, but also some of the earlier ones I talked about today as part of this formula, all affect retention in the end. Because otherwise, the algorithm just won't know who to show your video to, and it'll end up showing it to everyone at random. And when it shows your video to everyone at random, my name is Evgenia Bushman, and I've been working in sales and promotion for 6 years. Using this exact formula, I gained about 5,000 new followers in just a few videos, in addition to the audience I had already built up through other methods. But I really believe that this formula is what works best right now. All you need to do is sit down, open it up in front of you, adapt your content to fit it, post it right away, and see the results. Let's not drag this out. I'll get straight to the first point. One small but important note: this formula works just like any other formula. These aren't just some random tips. This is a real formula. You need to watch this video to the end to learn all the components of the formula, and you absolutely have to use all of them in your videos. Because each part is important, and each one builds on the next. On their own, they might give you a small boost in your videos. So, for example, if you're getting 200 views right now, that could turn into 400,000 or even 5,000. But if you really want awesome, viral videos, then make sure to implement all of these components. The first component, well, actually, it's not the first idea. Let me explain. When we talk about viral videos, about reels, it's really important not just to make videos that get views, but also those that bring in subscribers. I believe that videos that only rack up views but don't attract a new audience are basically a waste of time. Every video I make, every video I talk about on this YouTube channel, by the way, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, is specifically designed and aimed at getting subscribers. And not just any subscribers, but targeted ones who will eventually become your clients. I believe that if you're making reels, it should be for this reason alone. So, all the next steps and components I'll be talking about today are aimed specifically at getting subscribers, targeted subscribers, to be exact. And in order to attract targeted subscribers and, at the same time, make your reels go viral, you don't just need a random idea, but one that's tailored to your target audience. Let me explain what that means. When I come up with ideas, I have an idea bank for my account, taking into account my specifics and my goals. There are certain ideas in there. I might see an idea somewhere, hear it, come up with it myself, or it might be born at the intersection of different things. I usually just jot everything down in my notes. But in my experience, when we just take the very first idea that pops into our head, exactly as it is, it usually doesn't work out. I mean, sure, sometimes there are some super brilliant ideas, but that's like 1 out of 10, or even 1 out of 100. So, having one viral video out of 100 isn't good enough for us. We need all of them to work. So what do? I take any idea that I have in my idea bank. Of course, I don't include any completely second-rate ideas there. I try to weed out the bad ones right away and only write down the ones I think are good from the start. And then I give that idea a few more iterations. That is, I rephrase it. I look at it from different angles. I think about how I can approach it this way or that way. Most often, if you want every one of your ideas to work, you can actually find some form for each idea, some way to implement it that will end up working. But most of the time, it's not the first iteration, not the first version, where you just came up with it, wrote it down, filmed it, and that's it. So learn to do this. Rephrase your ideas, turn them around, look at them from a different perspective, find non-obvious ways to bring those ideas to life. And the first thing that's important is not just that it's not your first idea, but even more importantly, it needs to be tailored to your target audience. This is important for 2 reasons. First of all, the target audience is absolutely critical. I've said this everywhere. Without a clear understanding of your audience, without having chosen the right audience, specifically chosen, not just defined for you, an audience you've selected based on your expertise and your circumstances. Without it. But neither will Instagram show you properly to your audience, because it simply won't understand who to show you to, and will end up showing you to everyone indiscriminately. And when it shows you to everyone, half the people won't even open your videos, and some will just scroll past. As a result, your stats will be bad. So, if we want our videos to get high reach, we need Instagram to show us only to our target audience from the very beginning. That means all our ideas have to be tailored specifically for our target audience. And from the start, we only add ideas for our target audience to our idea bank, and then we can tweak them even more so they're not the first ones, like. And the second idea, the third iteration of that idea, how could we change it to make it even cooler, even more interesting? That's the first component of our formula. The second component of our formula is a hook. The hook is something a lot of people skip. Yes, some of you already know what this is, that it needs to be done, but most people still ignore it, especially given the huge amount of content on the market and the fierce competition for viewers' attention. A hook is simply a necessity. A hook can be some kind of trigger at the beginning, when you say something provocative or write a catchy headline. A hook can also be a visual element, when some kind of action happens on screen that grabs attention. A hook can be an engaging headline, maybe not super provocative, but one that really hits your audience's pain points. For this, of course, you need to properly study your audience again and make the right choices. A hook is what every one of your videos that goes viral should start with. In some cases, the hook can actually become your signature move, and you can repeat the same hook over and over, and it will still work. In fact, it can even help anchor your audience to you and your personality. At one point, I think it was last summer, I was experimenting, and I had a hook that worked really well. In the first few seconds of the video, I would introduce myself as the girl who moved to Portugal alone, without an IT guy husband, just with her dog. There wasn't any kind of visual hook, but the phrase itself was pretty triggering and memorable. A lot of people recognized me because of that phrase and would watch my next videos, remembering me by it. The shorter and more memorable your hook is, the better. Of course, each video can have its own hook, but if one works really well, you can try testing it out and using it regularly for a while. The next, third component, one of the key, very important elements of meaning, is something I actually only discovered after publishing on Reels for some time. I had 10 videos that really took off one after another, and I sat down to analyze what exactly was in them that made them all go viral. And all 6 components I talk about were present there, but this one I hadn't intentionally included at first, yet it ended up being there, and I'm glad I realized it. Now I always use it whenever I want a video to go viral. And this component is intrigue. You might say that schemers annoy you, that you hate intrigue, but the reality is that every one of my videos that went viral had intrigue in it. The videos that got the most views brought me the biggest audience, with stats like this, and like this, they all had intrigue. It was never clear until the very end how things would turn out, what the final result would be, what the takeaway was, or what decision would be made. A very common mistake is to start a video with a ready-made solution. I arrived. I stated the solution or shared my thought, and then I spent another 30 seconds explaining that thought. But as soon as people hear the main idea, they don't need those extra 30 seconds of explanation anymore. You need to do the exact opposite. You should save the solution, the conclusion, or the final result for the very end. Of course, if your video is built around storytelling, that's how it will turn out anyway, but you should consciously make sure in any video format that all the most interesting and key points are saved for the end. Recently, under one of my videos here on YouTube, someone left an angry comment saying, "Evgenia, it's such a shame that everyone has forgotten about Reels. That you actually need to make useful content, not just fill it with triggers and fluff." I understand the emotions of the person who wrote that, but let's be honest, long-form, valuable content, when we sit down and talk at length about something useful, has never really been in demand on Reels. This format has always been about grabbing attention and keeping it. If you analyze the videos in your feed that get a lot of views, the ones that show up for you, for example, aside from the relatable and humorous ones, almost all the expert videos that really worked contain some intrigue, and the solution is always at the end. Really pay attention to that. Of course, it's very important to keep a balance here. Your video shouldn't be just filler with the solution coming at some point later. That's why you need to learn how to create a proper intrigue. You also need to learn how to embed the right messages in your Reels. You need to learn the right script and structure for Reels, too. But often, just being aware of this can already completely change your approach. But right now, we're only halfway through our formula. So, half the formula is already in place. We've discussed 3 points, and now we're moving on to the next 3, which will perfectly complete the picture and make your reel cohesive and guaranteed to go viral. The fourth thing that should be in every one of your videos is a content segment with your own opinion or experience, not just information. Even if your video is only 10 seconds long, some abstract information that isn't clearly connected to you might go viral, but it won't bring you any followers. If you want not just videos that go viral and get views, but ones that actually attract a quality audience, people who will subscribe and eventually buy from you, then always include your own perspective, your experience, the context of your life in your videos. There should never be any question about how you fit into what you're sharing. I won't go into detail here, as it's a pretty big topic. There are many ways to integrate yourself into any sales content, any expert content, to weave in your selling points and offer seamlessly, very subtly, but at the same time super effectively. The viewer watches valuable content and doesn't even realize why they suddenly want to buy. That's what I do. That's how I teach in my courses and personal consultations. But now we're moving on to the fifth component, which is always a hot topic for debate, yet it's an absolutely essential part of this formula. Here, I've combined sound, editing, and music. In other words, it's about how your video will be perceived both visually and audibly. Let's start with the visual aspect. I didn't break this down into a bunch of separate points, because everyone's already talked about it, and each of you knows that things need to look good and sound good. And I've mentioned this many times in previous videos, so we're combining it all into one point, but a lot of people still underestimate the importance of this point. When I say that editing is an important component within the formula for a viral reel, I don't mean some incredibly trendy, complicated editing that you paid a ton of money for or spent 3 days working on. I'm talking about the basic editing rules that increase retention and engagement in your video. There are quite a few of them, and you could spend a long time figuring them out and discussing them. Let me give you one example so you all understand, which many people often overlook and make this mistake. And I believe this is specifically an editing rule. A huge number of beginner experts start their videos with some kind of sigh, with a breathy sound. Let's imagine I'm sitting here filming myself right now. I'm all set up like this. Have you do something? And that 1 second while you're inhaling, everyone's already skipped your video. That's not your fault. Please, breathe. I breathe too. But that's an editing problem. Everything unnecessary should be cut out, and everything should be smoothly connected. If you know you have this issue, and you're not starting with a strong context and hook from the very first millisecond, then work on it. Both when working on your script and during the editing stage. This point also includes sounds and music. I believe this is an important component. Sounds can boost engagement, which, after all, is why we're all here. Because the key metric for Reels is exactly attention retention, audience engagement throughout the video. And sounds can amplify emotions even more, trigger reactions even more, and engage viewers even more. So add typing sounds, jingling coins, switching noises, whatever fits your video. And of course, music can also create an extra atmosphere and increase the average watch time of your video. And the sixth component, which will be the last, the final one, but very, very important and actually makes it easier for you to implement almost all the previous points, the final element of the formula, after which everything comes together, is timing. If you set aside absolutely all the rules for creating reels and single out the most important one, the one that truly determines your final result, even though it's hard to influence it in a vacuum, this is what matters most. It's the retention of your audience while watching your video. So, for example, I start a video that lasts 15 seconds, and if I watch less than half of it, then the video will take off. If I watch 12 out of 15 seconds, and many people do the same, then the video will take off. This is just a basic rule you need to know, remember, and drill into your head. And the timing. That's something that has a huge impact on retention. Of course, some experienced folks who have been making videos for a long time, who do it professionally, and who have a ton of experience both in creating and analyzing their work, they can afford to hold viewers' attention for much longer. For example, some of my videos that really took off and got a lot of views were 50 seconds long, or even 1 minute and 10 seconds. At some point, I was making videos like that. And I managed to keep enough attention in those for them to get those kinds of views. But if you're not a very experienced person, if you honestly realize that you don't have enough experience for that kind of professional, deep audience retention, if you don't have an awesome editor, a great soundtrack, or the 57 tricks you've already discovered through your own experience that help with retention, then the simplest thing you can do to improve retention is just to shorten the video length. I would recommend making videos between 15 and 30 seconds at most if you're having trouble getting them to take off. Actually, not just this point, but also some of the previous ones I talked about today. Formulas ultimately affect retention. But when we say, okay, Evgenia, you need to work on retention, you just sit there not really understanding what to do. But when they specifically tell you, put the conclusion at the end, add some intrigue, start with a hook, share your opinion, add sounds, edit it well, keep it within a certain length, then it finally starts to make sense how the heck to actually hold people's attention. And it's not just me coming in and saying, guys, keep your audience's attention for more than 50% of your video. But I broke it all down, explained it in simple terms, and gave you a step-by-step guide. That's my approach here on YouTube, so that it's comfortable for you to watch my content. And of course, this approach, where I don't just say, do this, but actually explain how to do it, because otherwise no one really knows how, is important. And in my courses, I go into even more detail about every single step than I do on YouTube. So if you decide to study with me, you can be absolutely sure that you won't be left wondering how to do something, because I've already thought it all through for you and explained exactly how to do everything, with examples and step-by-step plans. I have my main comprehensive course, which covers all questions related to sales and promotion, where you'll definitely get a solid understanding of sales and learn how to manage them. Sales will become something easy, interesting, and enjoyable for you, not just an endless lottery of whether it will work out or not. I also have several short intensive courses. One of them is called The First 5 Steps. It's for beginners, for those who have no idea where to start. And there, I literally take you by the hand and help you make your very first steps in sales. There's also a really great 2-day intensive course for those who already have some experience. If you're putting in the effort but still not making any sales, this course is definitely for you. That's exactly what I called it. I'm trying, but there are no sales. In those 2 days of the intensive, you'll be able to clearly understand what exactly affects your sales and what you're missing so that your efforts lead to consistent results. So, check out all the details at the link in the description and choose the format that works best for you. And if, at the time you're watching this video, the option that suits you is still available for purchase, buy it right away, because it won't always be on sale. And it's exactly these components, I think, that make up the formula for the perfect Reels, one that will definitely take off and bring you targeted followers who will happily become your clients in the future. Reels made using this exact formula are really liked by Instagram, and it eagerly promotes them. And once you try it, you won't be able to do it any other way, because you'll quickly see how well it works. This was Evgenia Bushman, an expert in systematic, regular sales. Be sure to watch my other videos, follow me on Instagram and Telegram, and of course, come join my courses. Well, that's all from me for today. Bye everyone.